All right, hey guys, this is going to be the video going over the head and neck muscles for you guys to review for content training. I'll be having some future videos going over the muscles of the torso and appendages, but for now, this is going to be the head and neck video. So, to start with muscle number one here, we've got our frontalis muscle. And as you can see, we're looking at a frontal view of the head here. And the frontalis is aptly named because it sits on the frontal bone. And so there's me highlighting some of those muscle fibers there. And then directly inferior to your frontalis is going to be the ring-shaped muscle called your orbicularis oculi. And then directly inferior to that is going to be a similar muscle around the mouth called the orbicularis oris. And so oculi is named because of the eye, and oris named because of the mouth, and then orbicularis is named for that orbital or circular shape. And so moving laterally to look sort of at the side of the head here, we've got a few muscles that we're interested in. So to start, we've got our risorius here, which is this muscle right here. And then directly above that, we have our zygomaticus major. And then directly above that, we have the zygomaticus minor. And so a trend going forward is we'll see that muscles named major means that they tend to be bigger, and they also tend to have a minor counterpart to them. So in this case, we have the zygomaticus major, which is the bigger muscle, and then we have the zygomaticus minor, which is the smaller muscle, hence what their name. So the risorius is at the bottom here. Zygomaticus major is in the middle, and I'll shade this in blue. And then zygomaticus minor is going to be at the top, and I'll shade this in yellow. And so this is one of those muscles we need to know the origin and insertion of. And so the zygomaticus major is going to originate here on the zygomatic process, and it's going to insert here on the lateral angle of the lip. And as we know, the insertion moves to origin during contraction, and so what's going to happen is that muscle is going to pull the lip up that way. So, and also we can see here above it, we've got our orbicularis oculi highlighted very poorly here. And then next to it, we have our orbicularis oris. While we're here, we can also talk about the mentalis. So the mentalis is actually a unique muscle in that is one of the few skeletal muscles that inserts it onto skin. So it originates from the mental region or the mandible, but it inserts onto the skin of the chin, and that's one mentalis muscle right there, and that's another mentalis muscle right there. And so a lot of times when people you see dimples on people's chin, those dimples are formed because of these little fibers here from the muscle itself. So if we actually go look at a posterior view of the head here, we'll notice these fibers right here. And these fibers are called the occipitalis, and they're named aptly so just like the frontalis because they sit on the occipital bone. And so we give them their name, the occipitalis. If we go and if we look right here, we'll see that there is a muscle sort of under or more deep. It's called the buccinator or the buccinator. Either name works. And I'll go ahead and highlight it here like so. And this muscle is, again, it's actually deep to the risorius, zygomaticus major, and zygomaticus minor. So if I come up here and we look at those muscles again, you'll notice there's a fat pad here. This is called the buccal or buccal fat pad, and this is a common area for plastic surgery. And underneath the buccal or, again, buccal fat pad is your buccinator, and you can see it kind of extends up here and then right here. And so this would be a superficial view of the muscles. And then if we were to go look at a deep view of the muscles, we would see the buccinator or buccinator up under that fat pad there. If we then go and look at a even more lateral view, we'll see we've got the masseter off to the side of the jaw there. And the masseter is one of the biggest muscles in your head. and it's going to be another one that we need to learn about the origin and insertion of. And so first off, when we look at the origin of the masseter, it's going to be up here on the zygomatic arch. And then down here on the mandibular ramus, we're going to have our insertion. And so again, just like with the zygomaticus major, insertion moves to origin, and so it's going to sort of pull the jaw or the mandible upwards, or it's going to elevate the jaw. And the masseter is named because it's the primary mover of mastication or chewing, and so that's why those names kind of sound similar. So we can also actually see a really good view of another muscle we need to know here. If I let's actually choose a smaller pen size here. If I highlight this sort of V-shaped looking muscle, you can kind of see it goes all the way up there like so. So it kind of starts from the bottom of the mandible and anchors onto the hyoid bone and kind of runs back up. That's called, so all this shaded in here, this is known as your digastric muscle. And so that's your digastric muscle. And if we look at another picture I have here, we'll see the platysma. So this is the most superficial muscle really in the neck. We don't have any models that show it, but just to kind of give you guys a view of what it would look like if you were to see it, this sort of big sheet here is called the platysma, and that's actually why it's named, because platysma is Latin for like thin sheet, and so that's how it's got its name. And so going back up to the head here, we'll see this sort of giant muscle here up under, and you'll notice again, this is kind of it's a cut. So if we got rid of all that aponeurosis there on the scalp, then you'll notice that you'll see a muscle up underneath it. And this muscle is called your temporalis muscle. And again, it's named because of its location, which is the temporal bone. So if we extend our view down into here, what we'll notice now, looking more towards the neck, we've got three muscles right here. We've got one kind of right there like so. We've got this other muscle that kind of runs up next to it, kind of runs up in this formation here. And then we've got this muscle right here like so, and it extends up a little bit more. So these are called your scalenes muscles, and they're kind of a group of three. We just typically refer to them as the scalenes, but for the purpose of this class, we're going to sort of have them break it out. They've got the anterior scalene, which again is on the anterior side. We have the posterior scalene, which is on the posterior side, and then we have here this what we call the middle or intermediate scalenes. So there's your middle scalenes. And if I actually go ahead and erase this, a good way to find this is to find this nerve bundle here. This is called their brachial plexus. And you'll notice there's 1, 2, 3, right? So the most posterior one of the three is the posterior scalenes. The one in the middle is the middle or intermediate scalenes. And then the one on the anterior side of the brachial plexus is going to be the anterior scalenes. And if we go and extend our view right here, what we'll see is we've got our this sort of big muscle in the neck. And a lot of times you can actually see this muscle on people. And this is definitely one of the biggest muscles we've got in our neck region. And this is called the sternocleidomastoid. And so this muscle, again, is aptly named because of its origin and insertion sites. So it's going to originate, actually, let's see if I can find a better view of its origin. Here we go. So this muscle right here, this is sort of a lateral view of that sternocleidomastoid muscle. This whole structure right here, let's actually go ahead and erase the digastric. This whole structure right here, let's actually follow the fibers. So this structure right here would be your sternocleidomastoid. And what it's going to, I believe this is another muscle actually that she wants her students to know the origin insertion of. And so it originates up on the sternum and clavicle right here, hence its name. The sterno means sternum, and clito actually means clavicle, so sternum clavicle or sternocleido. That's the origination point. And then where it's going to insert is up here on the mastoid process of the temporal bone. And so again, origin moves to insertion. So when the sternocleidomastoid contracts, it's going to pull the head and neck kind of down that way. And this one's one of those unique ones. If we just contract one side, you kind of pull the head more laterally, kind of towards one side, versus if we contract both at the same time, then your chin just kind of goes towards your neck, like you're tilting your head forward. So up underneath the sternocleidomastoid, we actually have another muscle that is a little bit difficult to see on this image, and that is called the sternohyoid. So it's this, So it's this muscle kind of right here. And that is named because, again, just like how there's some of the fibers right there, that is again named just like the sternocleidomastoid, how it originates on the sternum and clavicle and inserts onto the mastoid process. Well, this is named because it originates on the sternum and it originates onto the hyoid bone, which is this obviously bone right here in the neck. And so our final muscle, I believe, is going to be, let's see here, is going to be this muscle on the back of the neck here, this very big muscle. And we'll break this one down because this one actually has a few regions to it. So what we've got here is our trapezius muscle. So this is what sometimes people will call your traps. And the trapezius muscle is actually going to be a superficial muscle. If you look to the right here, this is actually a deep view. So this is if we had sort of removed and reflected back that trapezius. And we'll talk about what these muscles are in a little bit. But just so we know, these fibers kind of right around there is probably when it ends. Maybe you could make an argument that it goes a little bit further down. This would be your superior trapezius, or the superior fibers to the trapezius muscle. And that's just another muscle that we'll break it into superior portions, its middle portions, and its inferior portions. And we'll talk about the middle and inferior portions later in future videos. So that's going to do it for this video, and I'll come back with future videos on the muscles of the torso and of the appendages.